All right, YouTube, we're here live for the Saturday night's main event, NoSo Post Show, not directly after, but about 24 hours after the event with Richie, with Rossi. Rossi, what's up, pal?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Richie, what's up? What's up with you?
Nothing much. How you been, man?
Been doing my thing, I'm about 45 minutes back from the drive-in, and I'm feeling refreshed enough to get down and talk about the historical event. And historical it was, a 4-match card, not a lot of in-ring time, but that's totally fine by me. It was all about John Cena, and John Cena's wish was to highlight the future, like the past highlighted him. So that he wants to leave the WWE in good hands coming out, just like we were coming out in, right? So his goal was to do NXT exhibition matches versus WWE exhibition matches. So the goal was to do all that. And Richie, what did you think of the format overall? As I have 100 things going on and I can't get to my point.
I think the format overall was a nice change of pace. You know, it's not the first time we've seen WWE stars versus NXT stars, but for that to be kind of the theme and kind of tie back to John Cena really was pretty cool. And I think a lot of the stars they chose from NXT were the correct choices. And if you're putting money on it, I would say that those would be the specific talents that you would probably see sooner rather than later go to the main roster, hopefully SmackDown, considering SmackDown's going to 3 hours and you need as much fresh talent as possible in order to make that show lively.
Rossi, what did you think of the format? Did it work?
I liked it.
Is it something they should do again in the future?
Yeah, I liked it. I think that it's a cool format to do at least once a year. I think doing it in December, like we were talking about when we did the preview, makes a lot of sense because that kind of gears people up for the new year, and maybe one or two of them will end up in Rumbles as well. But I think it was a good opportunity for the NXT people to get their first real shine. Also, a good opportunity for the people that got to face those NXT wrestlers. Like Bayley got to be on the Cena. That was a big deal to her. AJ being able to do the salute after his match, and obviously Cody, it was important to him to be on the show. So I think opportunity to not only give those young stars an opportunity to establish vets, an opportunity to say bye to Cena on their own.
Yeah, I hope historically it kind of lands into something. After digesting it all, I hope historically it leads to something, and it can lead to the matches, because tonight was obviously about John Cena, but in the future it can lead more to the matches and to the presentation of the characters and introducing guys and so on and so forth. And so I thought we brought that up about, I hope it kind of sticks, and now that we watched it, I hope it sticks as well. So it opened off with Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes going no contest in a champion versus champion NXT versus WWE Undisputed Champion, 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Of course, this match was kind of a no contest because Drew McIntyre ran in. And where I was sitting, the guys in front of me happened to be Massachusetts guys. And Rossi, I didn't really know them, but they were cueing me in on all the Marvel stars walking by, and Tyrese Halliburton, Nick Khan, and all these people walking by. And we thought that we were going to get a Drew McIntyre run by, but he came in adjacent from us, the opposite end. So the reason I bring that up is because it was rather predictable that Drew was going to kind of come in and ixnay this. But before that happened, they had 9 minutes of in-ring action, and I thought it was solid. It did a great job of highlighting Obafemi. Obafemi felt like a big star. First of all, Cody Rhodes is the biggest current guy they have from a in-ring standpoint and superstar standpoint. He's the biggest, right? He's your world champion, and he's your biggest star from a guy that is full-time, so to speak. So for Oba to come out after him, I want to say he probably got about 75% of the pop that Cody did. So of course, he's going to live up to the hype, and he lived up to that hype, and he had a nice little Oba chant going on, or like it was to the cadence of his walk. And I felt that his walk on the big stage perhaps was a little forced and corny, but not to an extent. Once they started chanting Oba, and you had 19,000 people legit chanting Oba, I'm like, oh shit, that walk and that cadence makes 100% sense. So, but match-wise, star power-wise, Oba felt like he belonged. But match-wise, you could tell right away that they were not allowed a lot of minutes, right? And they maximized all 9 minutes. They had a few big spots. They wanted to show who Obafemi was. They wanted to show that he could take a big signature move in the Cody Cutter for a close near fall. And they went to the outside. I think that it was pretty strategic to show his speed and his strength and his impactfulness with that table spot, and to show the menacingness of the blood too was a nice touch as well. And then Drew came in, and of course Oba got the shine on Drew as well. And then they shook hands. Guys, just real quick, that's kind of what happened, and that's really all it needed to be. It didn't burn the house down from a star rating standpoint, but it was a great way to set the tone for the Saturday night's main event, and really do its job of show the world who Obafemi is. First of all, Richie, do you think Obafemi will reach that height that Cody Rhodes is at? You know, of a WWE main eventer, to get to where Cody's at, you need to main event 3 WrestleManias in a row.
Not only do I think he's going to meet Cody's expectations, I think he might even surpass them if he plays his card right and WWE portrays him pretty much as he's been within NXT, because with Obafemi, he's the one NXT project from the Next in Line program that's really been a tremendous success, where I think he came in with like low expectations, but he just got over just by his presentation, his cadence, and he was legitimately built for pro wrestling in WWE. And you know, he has the presentation down, the entrance down, his timing is improving with each and every match. And he busted Cody open, even though it was by accident. But even that's going to come a long way, because then you could say it's like, oh, Oba took Cody, WWE champion, to the limit, busted him open, you know, and that's what you want in a showcase like this. Yeah, the match ending, you know, was what it was. I don't think anybody really expected a clean win. I think a lot of people hoped Oba would get a clean win. But if you beat the WWE champion and then you go back to NXT, that's kind of like a downgrade specifically. So they did just enough where you saw what Oba can do, and then you're looking forward for him to interact with the main event names like Cody and like a Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, and Rossi, they have that Alabama pedigree to lean on too once they kind of introduced him. Now, so do you guys know that accent is kind of put on, and he's more Americanized than he puts on?
Oh yeah, he did in his first promo when he won the NXT title. He did like his nerdy voice with his legitimate accent. So
yeah, it's kind of like Kofi 2.0, and the fact that there's content of him pre-stardom where he obviously has his real voice and not what he's going by now.
Yeah, if you watch Level Up or anything like that, you'll like see like interviews with him just using like his normal voice.
No shit. So, all right, Rossi, do you think how do you think his future will compare to the other, 4 stars on the show? Do you think he's the biggest one out of the 4?
Yeah, I mean, I think him and Soul both have very good potential to, be in the next year or two on the main roster, not even just in NXT. So, yeah, I mean, the guy's got good big time star power. It doesn't seem like he's got a real imminent push up to the main roster. Strictly because he's the NXT champ, and at this point, I kind of think he'll probably hold it until Stand and Deliver. So I'm thinking he might be more of a post Mania debut, but I would throw him in the Rumble. I think that he should get some eliminations and kind of slow play him until 100% ready to go forward with him.
Yeah. All right, Richie. Next, we had Sol Ruca versus Bayley. Another exhibition match. Zarya with Sol Ruca, Lyra Valkyrie with Bayley. 9 minutes and 25 seconds. So pretty much the same time cue as the match before it. What happened? What happened here? What was really the objective besides getting Sol over?
Objective is just kind of like get a more satisfying ending in comparison to the first match, because you want to still have at least one NXT star go over so you could see them in a different light where you're like, okay, they can handle themselves on the main roster. We already saw Sol on SmackDown for a couple spots. And this was her chance against Bayley, and Bayley's probably the most reliable person that you want in this kind of environment because she knows how to make stars look good. And, Sol hit all her signature spots. And nice little Easter egg is that Bayley's attire was based off of John Cena's debut attire. So that was a pretty cool shout out. Again, with the finish was, the rose plant, but then Sol got her legs on the rope. So then a little while later, you had the Soul Snatcher, and then hits Bailey, and then tries to pin her. Bailey tries to do a roll up, and then Soul gets the roll up. So even though it's just a roll up finish, it still was a quality win for Soul, and it's probably going to help her story with Zarya later, and potentially they both get caught up together, or you just call up Soul in that single spotlight, maybe get an impressive Rumble appearance. Maybe she'd be like the Iron Woman in this year's Rumble, and then you just kind of put her on SmackDown. I feel like SmackDown needs her more, and again, it was just a showcase to see where it's like, this is the person that you should keep your eye on within the women's division. And Soul does bring a lot of difference in terms of in-ring style and presentation in comparison to everybody else on the roster. So she's going to be a big star.
See, I think she's going to be a big star, but I think that the depth of the women's division is much deeper than the depth of the men's division up top. But I'm wrong and I'm right. But the reason that I'm wrong is because obviously there's more men, but I think that it's easier to break through to that top level as a man than a woman, just based off of the age of Cody and Punk and Roman. And it's more yearning. Like Cena just left away. Like for Soul to break through, she's going to leap Monroe. She's going to leap Rhea. She's going to leap Belair. I don't know. I think Oba's more complete than Soul. Soul's just kind of, I get what she's good at, and I get I think that she's just more like when you get the finish, outside of the finish, Mike, I feel that there's something missing besides some charisma. I don't know if it's connecting charisma. I could be wrong. It could be a shit take historically. Who knows? But we'll see. Mike, my question for you on this match is, do you think that they were protecting Bailey by using a roll-up instead of finishing it with a Soul Snatcher that she did hit?
Yeah, I think so. And it kind of made me wonder, if they screwed up the positioning when Bailey was kind of rolling out of the ring, but it worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to your point with Soul, I think that, she's obviously good, and she's obviously very entertaining, and she's really grown in her in-ring action the last couple of years. But to your point, she doesn't really have that top overall quality that'll rocket her to the top, kind of like a Tiffany. Think of she's kind of in that spot that Stratton was in 2024 and Roxanne was in 2025, that they're probably going to get the big Rumble splash and then kind of be fully integrated in from there until it's time to go with them. They went with Tiff quick. They didn't go with Roxanne quite a lot more heel work and storytelling. So I do think it's going to be a tougher struggle for Soul to get to the top. But at least they've got those mid-card women's titles now that she probably could fit into pretty quickly,
Yeah, and then she's got the tag. But I don't know. She seems like she has a defined story with Zarya, and she's still not even the NXT Women's Champion. I'm not sure. I think her future is obviously the main roster, but I'm not sure if it's on the horizon. Then not. I think I'd fast track Blake more than her, to be honest. I think Blake, you just want to get Blake Monroe as Blake Monroe, not Mariah May.
And there's Jordan too, who's got the main roster deal. So you got to think she's up sooner than later as well.
Yeah, you just got to look at the landscape with the current women's division. Raw stacked, SmackDown still kind of stacked, but it's very deficient within the babyface realm. You have Charlotte and Alexa, but they're more in the tag team ranks right now. You have Jade Cargill, but she's not really working with any babyfaces. Maybe Michin, maybe Tiffany when she gets back. But again, there's nobody really in that filling that void of that babyface. So I think Soul and Jordan would be excellent pickups for the SmackDown Women's division. It's just a matter of where WWE sees the landscape once SmackDown goes to 3 hours.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see, right? All right, Rossi, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee versus Javon Evans and Leon Slater. Dragon and AJ won via pinfall, but this was a advertised tag team title match, but then that was quietly kind of revoked. 6 minutes and 30 seconds. This thing was on speed right away. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, this was almost like you turned the video up to 2 times speed. Right from the jump. And you tell right away they were going to go quick. From the way that they kind of quickly, the Javon and Slater was really set up to do that corner dive, which looked really cool. It was just a really good opportunity for all the younger talent in this to look good, and kind of AJ was there to piece it together. Match felt pretty choreographed. Like even to the point at one point AJ had caught Slater looking like he was going to do a Styles Clash on the outside, and he turned to make sure he was in position to get a super kick. It just felt like they probably walk through it for a 6.5 minute match. It's easy to do it. They probably walk through it pretty distinctively before the match on how they're going to hit all their spots and get into that time frame. There was near disaster in the match as well. AJ at one point towards the finish, it was him and Slater in the ring, and he tried to do the phenomenal forearm, and he completely slipped on the top rope, almost landed directly on his head. They played it off pretty well, I thought, on comments. The way that it was shot, it wasn't like a glaring hole, but then they went right to the finish anyways. So it kind of took a little bit of steam off the finish at that point, in my opinion. But all in all, I think Slater and Javon definitely looked good coming out of this. And, Dragon Lee, I think, got a little bit of shine as well. And obviously AJ being in there as a longtime rival of Cena was a nice touch.
Yeah, he seemed to be the reason to have this match was AJ Styles. But yeah, with Javon and Leon adding their age together and still being -6 to AJ's age, it was pretty cool how Slater made it go by, and Slater kind of improvised, on the fly when AJ fell, and it didn't even seem. It made it seem like the slip was on purpose, even though they'd have to really work us to make us think that it was. But in the rhythm and the flow and it didn't feel clunky. Let's just put it that way, with an obvious botch. And I feel bad for AJ too. He's like, oh, maybe his mind is not working because it's an accelerated pace, and he doesn't work at that accelerated pace, even though he's a phenomenal athlete, no pun intended, right? But for him to kind of be like, all right, we got to fit all this into 6 minutes, and then he's just like, he might have been just shot. Right. And then Javon and Leon, those guys just move at the pace as is. And it was very lucha too, as well, with Dragon Lee. So AJ perhaps maybe a little ahead of his skis from his mind and his head. But overall, it was a pretty good match for what it was, Richie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Fun showcase for Javon, fun showcase for Leon. I do like the little Easter egg where you have the first X Division champion in AJ Styles and the current X Division champion in Leon Slater just kind of facing off. And it also kind of ties back to the Slammiversary segment where Leon won the X Division title. So it was very cool and complete that way. Not sure if you guys noticed, but AJ seemingly didn't come out with the championship when he came out.
No. I didn't see that live. Yeah, really.
So it reminded me of like when Randy and Edge, they came out once on WWE Raw, and Randy just didn't have his title, and then the next shot he just did. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, overall, I wouldn't be surprised if Javon just goes right to the main roster. Like he has time. He's 21, but if you want
you think historically he'd want to win the belt.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, what's more important, being the champion of NXT or being on the main roster and starting there? So, again, you could go either way. I think they're really just trying to build Javon up. So, if Oba goes first and then you get Javon, maybe post SummerSlam or something like that, I think that'd be fine as well. And Leon, I'm not sure what his contract status is up, but obviously WWE thinks highly enough of him that he's featured in this match right here. But I also think they wanted to showcase Javon without Javon taking a pinfall loss. So you have Leon in there and then just kind of go on and see how the showcase is. Unfortunately, mess up from AJ, but Leon covered well. And that just kind of shows how, even at the age of 21, how his mind is working in a professional wrestling, beat by beat standpoint, where it's like all the little things like Leon and Javon do extremely well. And you don't find that in people their age. So, overall pretty good. I think Dragon Lee kind of made up for his performance on Raw where he just kept dumping Ivar a little bit. So, overall, I thought this was a fun car crash. And hopefully we see maybe Javon and Leon as a tag team or maybe one at a time.
If they were to go up now, they'd have to be a tag team or they would just get lost in the shuffle, in my opinion. No, I just think they're fine where they're at. All right, so no angle with Zarya and Soul. No angle with AJ and Slater. I guess you can call Drew McIntyre coming in with an angle. So these were like the definition of exhibition accelerated matches. It was a showcase for the future. They were more cool than consequential. They kind of were just there in a way, but it was cute. idea, but none of the matches are like kind of out of your way must sees, in my opinion.
It's kind of like a backdoor pilot for like a ongoing TV show where you're like, just like, all right, let's see, like this could be like what we could see in the future, but let's see how the audience reacts to it. So it's kind of like the testing ground to see how the main roster audience reacts to all these NXT stars. And to be honest, I think the crowd reacted very well to each and every one of them. And then you have you have the segment later with the Miz, and I thought that was pretty cool as well to showcase more talent in a different way.
So obviously the Miz, Joe Henry, and R-Truth are all John Cena's kind of boys, right? Obviously Cena wanted to give Joe Henry a rub in a way, and then backstage he loves the Miz and R-Truth, right? So this was a nice way to get his buddies on screen. Obviously Joe Henry shot his shot with John Cena and said, "Hey John, I'd love to face you in your final year at the Royal Rumble," right? And John was like, "We'll see what happens." And you thought Joe Henry would be a name in the 16-man tournament, but it went to Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler. So I like that John was true to his word, and it was a great way to present Joe Henry. I'm telling you, being there live, everyone knew who Joe Henry was. They were waving their hands and doing the slide to side. And it's corny, but they were into it, the shtick, and they knew the shtick, most importantly. But like 5 minutes leading out to when the Miz came out, 5 minutes before, like we had the big security guard come over and made the guy who was like holding the floor and checking floor tickets, the usher, so to speak. He had the usher block the aisle. So I was like, oh shit, who's coming out? And the guy next to me was like, oh, it's got to be Trump. I was like, all right, well, if Trump walks by, that's gonna be something. But it ended up being the Miz in his WrestleMania 27 gear, and I was just like, oh my God, the Miz is in his gear. They're just killing the finish right now in this match. I'm like, this is so like seeing Solo walk out in the WrestleMania 39 main event right before. So I think I'd have the Miz sit ringside in his gear like that. I don't love that whatsoever for the main event. Like it got like a bad taste in my mouth 100%. I was like, oh, they're getting way too fucking cute. But then they do the whole Joe Tess and Stephanie thing. Well, it was right in front of us as well. And then they had the Miz interrupt it, of course, right? And then I thought that was cute. And I thought it was necessary. And I thought it was a nice way to kind of bring the crowd up and down at the same time and set the tone for the main event. What do you think of the whole Miz fiasco, angle, whatever you want to call it, Rossi?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just a good way to engage the crowd because the crowd, there's a lot of video packages, there's a lot of, lull as a lot of these shows can have for the live crowd. So having this out there to kind of, really kind of ramp them up and get them cheering before, to some extent, they kind of would disappoint some of them with the finish, right? I think a good way to, get the crowd pumped up for what was really the headliner.
Yeah. Do you think this is satisfying enough for Mike the Miz Mizanin as a John Cena friend, Richie?
Yes and no. I feel like the Miz, he was the first one to throw his name in the hat to face John Cena. Obviously, that didn't happen, but again, it all goes to timing. And unfortunately, when John Cena was on SmackDown, Miz was also a heel at that time, so there was no feasible way that they could interact with each other. And then when John turned babyface, he was primarily on Raw. So it's one of those like two ships passing in the night. But at the same time, like they did have a story for the couple of weeks with the Miz wanting to be on this show because he defeated John Cena at the main event of WrestleMania years and years ago, like he likes to remind us. And you give that story where it's like he switched his name and so he could be a part of the tournament again, loses, and then still demands a moment. Truth is like being the comedy detective. And then you have the reveal on who Miz replaced in the tournament, and that was Joe Hendry. And then you get like a nice little wrap up. So it's like, again, for a comedy segment, that's kind of like a break in between like a car crash match. I thought it worked out well.
To tie into the R-Truth balls joke, I thought was kind of written really cute and well for what it was. Like I could do with or without this segment, but I thought it was timing wise. I thought it was fun and good. Joe Henry's prospect, Rossi, our old ROH trivia buddy, Joe Henry during COVID. You, me, and our other buddy did Ring of Honor trivia, and we got a wrestler slotted on our team, and we carried the weight for Joe Henry's non-knowing Ring of Honor ass. And we got first place. And Joe Henry was like, oh, this was awesome. I answered like no questions. I'm like, well, we're fucking marks, Joe Henry. We know our Ring of Honor history. But we hung out with Joe Henry for like 2 hours on camera in a backstage, and he was awesome. It was just a setting like this, and they would present the Ring of Honor question, and then we would just be like, we would converse, and then we would answer it. And Joe was like a super cool guy. Do you think that likableness and that charisma and all that stuff will translate to a WWE presentation to the mainstream, or do you think that he's kind of slotted at the Miz spot at best? Like the
Miz. Yeah, I mean, I think like even like Truth, like he's somebody that, when they decide to go main roster with him, he's going to be on TV every week, but it's not going to ever be anything, too consequential. Kind of like how he's being used in NXT now. Like they brought him in to do a little feud with Chelsea and Ethan, but he's mostly jumping around backstage, just, entertaining the audience. So that seems to be, void for him. And then, he can also be that like Elias character that also does some live concerts and stuff too. So he's definitely an asset to any TV program. I just don't know if he's ever really going to have the chops in ring to really get to a super high level. But your roster needs guys like him as well.
Yeah, I think the current iteration of Joe Henry would need to evolve to get to that up main event. But you see a guy like Cody Rhodes evolve, who was kind of very similar popularity wise outside of the WWE with buzz, but Cody was more like revered as a wrestler. Not that Joe's a slouch whatsoever, but Joe is a little rigid, but that rigidness could kind of fall and fit into a WWE formula. What do you think, Richie? I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that he could find a lottery ticket and be a big star, but I think he's going to be a star regardless.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a star. Depending on what his trajectory is still kind of TBA, but or TBD. But with Joe Hendry, again, he could do a lot of things really well. Whether it's the concerts, whether it's just the presentation of the match, and we've seen him in serious stuff, and he does a pretty admirable job of it. And his shtick is going to be likable on the main roster for a little bit. I know some people are worn out with the Joe Hendry character, but it's still working. So it's like, does he really need to evolve past a certain point to get to the main event? Yeah, absolutely. However, as of right now, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I feel like with people like The Miz and Truth, you got to have guys like Joe in there as well. Just kind of like a fun interaction matches. You had the Santino spot, you had the Truth spot, you now have the Miz spot. And I feel like Joe Hendry is definitely going to be one of those guys that are going to surprise a lot of people by what he does within WWE on the main roster. I see a couple of championships in his future. I think he's going to be a great person to have in the Intercontinental and United States Championship scene. And with the in-ring stuff, he still is improving. And even though he's 37, I believe, again, that's still like young in this
the new 27.
Yeah, so like he's gonna be fine. His style's not super impactful, and I think that's gonna be working to his benefit because he's just meat and potatoes, and then he does what he needs to do, and he still gets a tremendous reaction, even though it's not the most complex kind of style.
I think he has a potential to make it, but I would bet on him just kind of finding himself at that IC level, like you guys kind of projected. All right. What everyone is here for, and what everyone was there for, all 19,000. John Cena's final match. This is why I went to Washington, D.C. Am I historically a massive John Cena fan? I am not. I was that guy in 2006 that rebelled against him. I'm the guy in 2008 that swore him off. I'm the guy in 2010 that was sick of him. I was the guy in 2012 that was wooed by him with the Rock promos and the Rock angle. I was that guy that was starting to move his direction in 2015 with the U.S. champion. And I was the guy that kind of missed him in 2017, 18, 19. And since 2017, 18, 19, he was kind of just a parody of himself. And somewhere down the line in 2025, his final run, he found himself as an in-ring wrestler. And Richie, Tuesday night, we're going to go over all of that. Quick plug. So I don't want to go too deep into all of that. But John Cena, current day, is the biggest superstar they have on the main roster of right now. He's bigger than Roman Reigns. He's bigger than Cody Rhodes. He's bigger than CM Punk. He is fully on that Bruno, Austin, Rock, Hogan, Flair level from a mainstream popularity standpoint. So this was a presentation of a match and a night that is unique in differ. I bring that up because everyone that was in there is emotionally attached to John Cena in some way. 23 years, you're going to touch a lot of generations, and you're going to touch a lot of generations of families as well. You're going to touch fathers that have just become, fathers that were boys that just became fathers, so to speak, and introduced their love of John Cena to their sons or daughters. And then those impressionable kids are going to adore John Cena. And then you have old heads like me and Rossi, who I already ran it down, we're smarks, but we see the importance of John Cena, and we obviously respect John Cena. And then you've got guys like Steve Bennett, who loves Hulk Hogan in the Hulk Hogan era, but cares about what John Cena does because he sees John Cena on that level. So whatever you are as a wrestling fan, so to speak, you're not indifferent to John Cena. You have some emotion to John Cena, and you have some investment into John Cena. Richie, anything to add towards that? The man John Cena. Did I overinflate him? Did I underrate him? What's your thought on John Cena?
I feel like with John Cena, it was a very big. He was the big constant within WWE and professional wrestling, not like anything we've ever seen before. Because it's like, ever since he broke through the main event scene in 2005 until now, you never saw a run at the top that long. And even though he was part-time, there was still this looming presence where it's like, it's still John Cena. And I think a lot of people, when he announced his retirement tour, were kind of like shocked. But at the same time, Ryan, you and I would talk about this. Like, it was noticeable that he was a step behind. It was noticeable that he didn't really have the big match John really much in him. And I think that's why for this current run, I think a lot of people were just upset because it's like they already had in their mind what they wanted the final John Cena year to be. And because we only saw John Cena for fleeting moments in the past couple of years, we weren't sure how he would be integrated into the current day WWE product. And whether you think that was a positive or negative, that's up to the viewer to decide. But I think with John Cena overall, he really did impact a lot of people in modern day wrestling, not only just people from a mainstream standpoint, but from people who were working up the independents into the WWE system, and they hold Cena in high regard.
Hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up and earn it were his mantras of John Cena. Mike Rossi, do you think the WWE painted the greatest picture of John Cena leading into this match? And perhaps do you think they painted that picture of his three mantras to play into the finish as well, apropos wise?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think never give up had a lot to do with the finish, right? And I think that obviously it was Gunther saying, doing what he said he was going to do and actually fulfilling his promise, which also was important. But yeah, I think WWE did a really good job from SummerSlam on with John Cena this year. Obviously, there was some pockets of success in the first half of the year, but obviously for an hour about, the Rock flea in town and how it kind of fucked with all that fun stuff. But it worked its way back for the babyface half of the year. And that helped because I think once he got into that babyface stretch, people were yearning for that. And then we got a lot of fun matches from there on out. The AJ match, which he says is his ode to wrestling. Even the Logan Paul match, which was just kind of him, making, the young star look good. All the way with Dom Mysterio, I thought was pretty strong. At the end of the day, he got his last win in Boston, which is right. That is some of us were that he wasn't having his last match in Boston. He had his last win in Boston. And I think put two important cogs in the WWE wheel over in his last two matches with Dom and Gunther. So I think all the video packages we saw in the ramp up were some of the best stuff we've seen from WWE in a while, and they're never bad at those things, but they really excelled in these. I think the surprise video package they showed them at the end, although nothing new, tugged at the heartstrings of anybody that watched it. So I think the overall presentation was right by Cena. And I think that, as we talk more about the match, I think that everything from the, how they got to this, how they finished it, I think made sense.
So the lights dim, and then you have the ominous Durner, and then the crowd just has nuclear heat for Gunther. And just watching Gunther on the screen, I was on the floor and looking up to the big screen, and just watching his face soak it all in. He was like, I know I'm going to crush this, and I'm going to be the most over as I ever been coming out of this. And he is, and we'll project on him later, but I could just look on his face that he was ready and excited for this night. And then with the John Cena presentation, I love the 20, 30-second pauses of just quietness and echoing and let's go Cena's and the crowd buildup before they hit the whole or whatever his entrances thing is. So they added that to it, and it just makes him feel big, and you suck in the moment and you bottle the emotion and all that stuff. But when he came out, you could feel the crowd was boiling and ready for this. I've met people from London. I knew a few people down there from New York, Long Island, from Chicago. I went in from Boston, Worcester. So it's just like people have traveled everywhere. I saw Philly stuff everywhere, Redskin stuff everywhere. So I saw all the NFL teams. A lot of Detroit I saw too. So people were just yearning. And this was a destination PLE level crowd. It wasn't your local PLE. People were traveling to see John Cena. So the investment and the emotion was there. We laid the groundwork for that. But John comes out and he has his moment with Stu, and it's just like, all right, he's not ready to give it away is how it looks in my eyes. So we run down, go through it. He gets in the ring, does the bullshit, does the John Cena stuff, and then he goes outside and he embraces a handful of wrestlers, legends like Kurt Angle, Elias, Haku, Booker T, Mark Henry, Nick Khan, Kevin Owens, Sammy and his son, Trish and Eve Torres. Eve Torres, haven't seen her in a while. Roll Tide.
Yeah, Roll Tide.
So the rollest of Tide back in the day in a way too. So I don't think I missed anyone, but I like that he had his legends at ringside. I like the moment that he gave Sammy too. So Sammy getting some shine as well on this night was important. I love the hug with Kevin, Elias, whoever you want to call him, right? The Drifter. I thought that was cool because that's a guy that Cena kind of fucked with for a while when he would return, and he benefited from a Cena rub. Like they had the WrestleMania moment times 2, 34, 35, and a few big Raw moments too. So it's cool that the Drifter was kind of looked back on too as well. So, all love there for the Elias, Elijah, whoever. And the table was set. The old MSG microphone with the Saturday Night Modified logo was on it, and Lillian Garcia did the big introductions, and the table was set. You probably had about 10-15 minutes before the bell rang of presentation. Richie, what'd you think of the presentation leading into the bell to bell?
I think the presentation was pretty perfect. You have Gunther, nuclear heat. Whoever was going to be in that position, you knew they were not going to be the home team, so to speak. So what you need is some person who could not only bounce off of that, but also accept it. If you chose a younger star in Gunther's position, there's a good chance they would have crumbled under that position. With Gunther, full of confidence, he was the right choice going back, and I'll explain why in a little bit after we get through the matchup. But with that, John Cena trying to give Stu his flowers, and then the camera cut away from him. But you just had a bunch of different people just appreciating John Cena, and the vibe was just a very different. It was just like a very big sense of finality, and having the legends there were great as well. And somebody pointed out that Kevin Owens and Elijah were sitting next to each other, so I just wonder how Kevin Owens felt about seeing Elijah and seeing if that's the brother of Elias or Ezekiel or anything like that, or
I think
Elroy.
he was on tilt.
Yeah.
Rossi, did this feel like it was warranted what was laid out for it to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of before I get into that like KO thing. KO is such a good dude, right? And he's somebody that was at be there as any fan was, right? And like even as you show, like I saw videos of like Punk and Bailey were like standing right by the hard cam for the majority of the match as well. So it was a really good opportunity to kind of get maybe some of Cena's favorites that shine as well. But all in all, yeah, I mean Cena is what John Cena is, right? And his presentation is always going to be strong. To the point that I love the narrow entranceway so they could get all the people in there like they've done with all these Saturday Night's main events. It just made his run feel that much more special as he's like kind of getting hit. Everybody or in that building was phenomenal, and it was like the interview after with Jackie when he was very emotional. I saw that today. He made a good point. Like we get so let's go Cena sucks over the last 15 years. There was none of that. It was let's go Cena. To Richie's point, it was fully like watching a full-blown home team get their flowers. So awesome moment, awesome segment from start to finish. And it's John Cena, man. We're gonna miss him.
All right, fuck you, Cena. I mean, fuck you, Gunther. Let's go, Cena. You tapped out. A plethora of cheers. I was like, I wanted to like so go. Slip of the tongue there.
I'm sorry. It was just
when
really
we got
funny.
the Let's Go Cena, there was no one saying Cena sucks.
Okay.
There was no one that said Cena sucks. I was like, God damn it. I was like muttering it, but I wasn't gonna go Cena sucks. But fuck you, Gunther, not fuck you, Cena. Richie, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, that popped me really good. Where we're just going over the aura of John Cena. It's like, oh, this is so great. And then you just
the crowd was legit. Fuck you, Cena. But I felt that the match was obviously it's a great match, and I'll get into it. But I felt that I loved that they were like getting into it right away to make you invest that we were going to get like a 6-minute sprint, because that was the highlight of the night, to have a 6 to 9 minute sprint. So I love that they were like, fuck the Gaga. We had a tie up. We're not doing the MSG house show bullshit. We're not doing the fucking modern day house show bullshit. We're getting into our shit. And they did that with a Cody Cena match at WrestleMania. And when I saw that here, I said, oh no. I was a little nervous how they started pacing it right away. But as soon as Gunther got him, and soon as Gunther gained control, after like the 6 minutes, playing into the 6-minute sprint, that we're going to be like, oh no, this is only going to be a 6 to 7 minute sprint. And then we're going to have like a big presentation, because I looked at my phone and they kicked it off at 9:41 was when they rang the bell. So I'm like, all right, I'm pretty sure they do not have a hard out. But then I started playing it with my head. I'm like, I looked down. I'm like, shit, they're like getting into it right now. I looked down. It was 6:48. And I'm like, fuck, they're not going to do like they're not going to end this 10 minutes of, and then we're going to have a 10-minute celebration. And then everyone's going to be like fucking pissed. I was like, oh, they can't be doing all this. If so, that would be an absolute nightmare, in my opinion. But I liked how they used that psychology and played into it with a unique presentation on how to roll out a match. I thought that was good in retrospect, even though in the moment they had me a little nervous that they were going to go to the finish. But they were probably playing me like a fiddle, or those who finish or play into it like a fiddle, because that's how Gunther has been of late too. I think that once his matches get a little longer in these big Sami Zayn, Jey Uso matches, he kind of gets caught. So him in a big match, he was more urgent as well too. So they're playing into a lot of things as well. But once they kind of ramped up and spilled to the outside and Gunther started setting up the stairs near the table, I'm like, all right, we're getting big match John, we're getting the Super Cena, we're getting all that layout. Richie, what'd you think of the introduction of the match and pretty much the first half of the match and the layout before we got into the heat of the final sequence?
Yeah, it was kind of expected. You know, John Cena can't do much at this stage of his career, like he keeps saying, and so I know it was going to be, you know, a lot of signature and finisher spamming right off the back. It's Gunther, so you're going to see chops, you're going to see holds, and I thought it was a really well worked, well paced match for the first half. And it was just like a question mark because I was watching with a friend and we're just kind of wondering how Cena is going to be in this matchup because, you know, majority of Cena's matches, which we're going to go over Tuesday, it was a lot of interference, it was a lot of gaga, it was a lot of like smoke screens for John Cena. And if you want a match to actually have bell to bell, no really funny business, no shenanigans, Gunther's probably the best choice in this position, which is what I was saying earlier. He was probably the right choice in terms of trying to get a quality one-on-one match with little to no, weapons or just like ref bumps or anything like that. You're just going to get a quality one-on-one match. And as a result, you're going to have to work that slow style that Gunther is known for, that methodical style. And it's the same style, like you mentioned before, Ryan, that like Cena tried to approach at WrestleMania 41, you know, that more methodical style. But Cena's not that kind of wrestler. You know, he doesn't really do that methodical style well when he's the heel. But as the babyface, you know, coming up from underneath, he's perfect in that position. You know, and the first big pop of the match was when he caught the chop that Gunther was going. And that's where you try to get that speed, and that leads into the sequence of, the whirly bird, the 5-knuckle shuffle, AA attempt. You get all those kind of things. And that was a perfect first half because now you're just getting started with the second half.
Yeah, and that second half started with the table spot outside, Rossi, and the crowd started screaming, "You ass, Gunther asshole!" Not Cena, Richie, but Gunther asshole. And I don't believe that it was muted on Peacock. I think you could hear it loud and clear on Peacock. So I think that's a pro of being to Peacock as well, opposed to NBC channel 7, 10, whatever it is in your market. So I will say positive there. Check mark Peacock. So Rossi, what did you think of the final stretch? Kind of before we get into the sequence in the middle of the ring. I don't believe that they would leave the ring after the table spot. I know they would go to the top rope for a spot here and there, but it was pretty straight ahead formatically, but they slowed down big time at the end. And what did you think of the layout?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really like throwing all that he had at Gunther and it wasn't working. And that kind of led into the finish in reality. I mean, he did that AA from the middle rope for a pretty close near fall at that point. And the crowd was really sitting on the edge of their seats at that point because we kind of felt like the finish could really come at any point at that stage. But then when Gunther got control again, to your point, he kind of played to his strengths. He started working, the submission game and started to, beat Cena down. And that's where we went from kind of that middle part of the match where Cena had control to the finish. But it really, like, it brings me back to, like, when he challenged Dom in Boston, he was like, Invincible Cena back. And that was the last time we saw Invincible Cena. So we had a little bit of a inkling of it as like I was saying, he was throwing, emptying the gas tank, trying to get Gunther down. But then it was kind of like when he kicked out of that middle rope AA, that's when you can kind of feel that, okay, that was Cena's best. Now let's get this into the hands of the winner. And I thought that they did it all very well to kind of build towards, the closing few minutes.
And the reason I wanted to leave out that the closing few minutes here is because I have never in my life heard a Super Cena chant. So I think they did a great job of building up to the Super Cena aspect because that would play into Cena submitting and quitting, right? So it's like the hope of John Cena never give up, the Super Cena, the Hulkamania, the Hulk, all that stuff, right? Cena is the modern version of that. And the moniker of Super Cena has never been in the vortex of the WWE outside of the smarks or the criticisms. Now Richie, it's endearing and it's a part of the vortex. And it's his chant to kind of Hulk him up or to Super Cena him up is to chant Super Cena? Did the announcers Cole and Barrett acknowledge that? And did you hear that Super Cena chant from the crowd?
Yeah, I definitely heard it. I think there was a faint one at SummerSlam this year when Cena was doing the AAAs for Cody, but here it was deafening. It's ironic because it was the thing that people hated the most about Cena. That Super Cena-esque character, and Cole and Barrett kind of in a roundabout way acknowledged it, and it was just kind of like a perfect kind of moment where it was. This is the guy that you never wanted to see Super Cena again. You never wanted to see it. You never wanted to see him overcome the odds with the 5 moves of doom. But then you have a full circle moment where the crowd actually wants it. They want that moment to happen because these are fans who either grew up with Cena or respect the work that he's done. And then you just kind of have this realization moment as, you have the sleeper hold spots going on. And then it's like people are getting louder and louder and louder. And they're just the support for Cena's growing. And it's really is like a cool story where it's like, here's a guy who's had a mixed reaction his entire career. And now he is 1000% in his home base, not where the match is taking place, but the WWE audience as a whole, which is pretty cool from different people who either grew up with him or just watched his entire career, veteran wrestling fans who are just seeing this. So it's a kind of cool moment.
Rossi, Super Cena chant's cool or dorky? Just be straight with me.
I think this was...
It was fitting. I don't want to cut you off, but it was fitting in the moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is pretty much this crowd sounded more like a European crowd. Being the smart crowd. It reminded me of a Day After Mania, Raw After Mania crowd, where they were going to be vocal, they were going to be involved. And to your point, there's a lot of fly-ins. There was a lot of travel people. There was a lot of people that literally didn't give a shit about the other 3 matches on the show. They were there for this match, and they were saving all of their for that. So that was, I think, Super Cena fit because everybody that's watching this this was a show. This was a match not for the casuals, right? This was a Cena goodbye for all of us that have been here for the last 20 years or whatever, 25 years, whatever it's been. So I think that's where it worked that the Super Cena stuff's there because we're all thinking it, as it's happening. There might be a certain area of the crowd that's newish that.
Yeah, just being
hit to them.
All right, Richie, I don't know if we're losing him here, but just being a part of the vortex is just blew my mind a little bit in the moment. I thought it worked, obviously, and I thought it was cool to an extent, but yeah, it was just crazy. All right, so I did like how Cena told you this is the last you can't see me, because just like Hogan, just like Austin, just like The Rock, you can't see me as pop culture. Of course, right? So it's apropos that he is this is the last time in a ring, in a match, you guys can do the sing-along with me. So I'm going home. I'm going to need your back to get me to be Super Cena. So give me one last, you can't see me here. And I thought that was corny but cute. But it worked. All of the dorkiness that John brings came out in the final stretch, but that's why he's so over. He's endearing. It's not like the rest. He's not The Rock. You know what I mean? The Rock was cool, but now The Rock's become dorky. Cena was dorky. Now he's become cool, right? So it's just a generational thing, in my opinion. But I just want to read to you the final stretch here. So the "You Can't See Me" was from Cena. Cena asked the fans. They have one more in as he held up his right hand. Cena got the crowd to chant "You Can't See Me" with him, and Gunther hit a boot to the face. I love that. Gunther hit a German suplex and a powerbomb for a 2 count. Cena got his right shoulder up. I thought that kick out was a little clunky, but let's be real. We're 25 minutes into the match at this point almost. Gunther went up to the top rope. I love the big splash. Cena punched him with a uppercut. Cena went to the middle rope and gave him an avalanche FU, which is a big time attitude adjustment. The crowd fucking flipped out for that. It was also the attitude adjustment from the middle turnbuckle. Cena and Gunther exchanged strikes. They did a good job of selling the fatigue too. Gunther went for a strike. Cena went for a lift, and it looked like Cena went for Cena got cut off. Gunther power bombed him and slipped off of the power bomb. Gunther went for the top rope for the flag splash, hit it for a 2 count. This is where the Super Cena chants illuminated. And Gunther applied the first sleeper hold of this long sleeper hold sequence. Cena tried to fight out of it. Gunther kept the sleeper hold on. Cena went for a lift, but Gunther couldn't go out of it and applied another sleeper hold. Gunther had the sleeper hold locked in for a while. Cena down to the mat. Then Gunther got up. Gunther jumped to his back. Cena back Gunther into the turnbuckle. Gunther jumped back onto Cena for another sleeper hold. Just reread that, but Cena hit another attitude adjustment for a 2 count. Gunther applied a sleeper hold, you can't see me. Gunther, this kid wrote this report terribly. Cena talked to Gunther, and Gunther tightened up for another hold. This doesn't make sense. I know I'm not the best reader, but this is what fans chanted, "Don't give up, Cena." That's what it was. "Don't give up, Cena" was an epic chant here as well too. And that was the one where I felt that the desperation of the crowd was really seeping in when they said, "Don't give up." I think they started to realize what we were going to get. And the culmination of the match was near. You already got "This is the last you can't see me." You already had peaks and efforts from Cena. And yet again, Super Cena. So the crowd was just yearning for Cena. "Do not give up." "Don't give up" was a chant for a while, Richie. Did that one land, or how did that come across as TV? Like, did it add to the match, to the crowd's investment, and the crowd's like, "Shit, we're down 4 points now, and a 3-pointer won't tie it" type of like urgency?
I think with the crowd, when they chant "Don't give up," and you could definitely hear it on the telecast, is you're just like that last shred of hope that it's like John Cena can do it one more time. You know what I mean? Where it's like you want the hero to win at the end of the story. That's what you want. You want Cena to ride off into the sunset and be what he always was. And I think with this chant where it's like, I'm not sure if it was desperation on the crowd, but it was just like, you want to see Cena overcome the odds one more time. Even if you didn't like it, it's like, hey, the guy deserves to go out on his last ride as a winner. And that's what you wanted to see, especially with how up and down the retirement tour was for a lot of fans. You just wanted to see like one more chance of him just like being victorious. And I think that's where the crowd really chanted that. And I don't think it's more of desperation. I think it's just more, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to give him power and then we're going to get the end. And then of course the end happened.
Cena lifted Cena's arm up once. The referee lifted his arm up twice. Cena held his arm up and stopped the drop for the 3rd time. The "Let's not give up" chants worked. The fans were so fired up here, and they truly, truly were. Gunther worked over Cena with elbow smashes to the head repeatedly. You could tell that the crowd was just, the energy was just dissipating at this point. Gunther applied the sleeper hold on Cena to the mat again. Cena used his left hand to tap the elbow. So John Cena loses via submission with a smile on his face. 1, 2, 3 taps. Now, Rossi in Worcester, Gunther was in a clover lock from Sheamus in their rematch. And Gunther did the 1, 2, and he did not tap out a 3rd time. When he did this, I was like, they're going to call back to Gunther. And that rule was Sheamus. And I was like, and that's way of Cena to outsmart. And we're going to get a go home that way with Super Cena to outsmart Gunther. But we didn't. He did the 1, 2, and with a smile on his face, 3. Rossi, what'd you think of the finish?
I loved it. I mean, to the point, your point, when he held his arm up, then that was his last hope. And it was like, all right, that gave that crowd that one last moment of hope, of a hope spot. But then, Gunther just outsmarted him. It reminded me of, and this is going to sound weird, it reminded me of McGregor against Khabib, right? where at every moment that Conor was standing with them and throwing punches and the crowd thought that he had a shot to win, the crowd was electric. But then once Khabib got him into, a mount for the fifth time, but he realized, shit, this fight, that's what this felt like, that same air leaving the crowd. And Cena's smile reminded me of the Flair cry when he got super kicked, right? Just the emotion that probably wasn't planned just came across him. And I think it worked out really well. And I like that Gunther just got the hell out of there too and let Cena have his moment. Where I think, the handshake could have fit, but I'm kind of glad they didn't do it.
They could always do that in the future too, right? The handshake could be something they could do backstage, in ring, whatever. Richie, do you think the smile was planned or impromptu?
I think it was planned to a certain degree, just because it's that relief, you know what I mean? That like his career is over. He realizes that Gunther wasn't going to give up, and this isn't really Cena giving up in terms of just like, I can't defeat this guy, but he's like, this isn't my fight anymore. I don't need to continue on with this. And that's kind of a sign that Gunther is going to be that new big bad. This feeling was very similar to when Brock ended the Taker streak. And, that air just kind of gets sucked out of the building and the energy just like really is like the pit of your stomach. If I were to like kind of rank these moments where it's just like, oh, wow, that just happened. You go with the Cody Roman WrestleMania 39, you go this one, and then you go Brock and Taker. What was with this one, it's just like this match seemed like was a better flowing end to it, where it's just like you see Gunther just going up to that next level, and he's going to get majority of the heat because even though we see Triple H on television quite a lot, Gunther is going to be that poster boy for that heat of ending Cena's career like the way he did and being the certified, I believe Cole called it the career ender or the career killer by the end of it. And that's the story that you want to go to. So now if Cena were to win hypothetically, that would be great for the moment, but the aftermath, there's not much you can do for Gunther or anybody else at that point. Now you create Gunther, who's this mega heel. And now you have people that are going up against him, whether it's people that are on the end of retiring, whether you have different guys in the wings who feel a certain way of him being the one to end Cena's career. It was just like a really cool like moment. I feel like that smile really summarized that Cena realizes that Gunther's not his fight anymore and that he's going to allow it to the next generation.
Yeah, it's kind of like him passing the torch in the way. And I think it was a way of him letting the crowd know that it's all right, guys. It's like, thank you for being a part of the journey, but it's the pass on to Gunther. Now let's support him and kind of just fuck with him. Rossi, take over.
Yeah, so I mean, it really was just Cena giving his goodbye in the way that you always knew that he would, right? I was actually surprised at how many people actually thought Cena was going to win this match, especially in that live crowd. I get it, where it was more so like being the fan favorite and wanting him to win, but and I don't really get it because it's kind of been a time-honored tradition that you go out on your back in pro wrestling. I know that probably the most recent big retirement that we saw in wrestling was Sting, and he didn't go out on his back. Set of circumstances in a completely different company. WWE has the history of going out on your back. Mm-hmm. They did it. Taker kind of did it in the Roman match. To me, that kind of still feels like his retirement match, even though he had a lot of gaga after that. But I don't know. I think that ultimately it was all a good way to close the book on Cena, and him going out, putting Gunther over, and making Gunther the biggest mega heel that they've had in a very long time. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, Richard, do you think this was pitched to Cena, or do you think this was Cena's idea? The tap out.
I think it was pitched to Cena. I don't think Cena would have a problem with it. Cena's the ultimate company guy, so he's going to go with whoever's in charge in WWE. And this is the difference between Vince booking Cena and Triple H booking Cena. I feel like with Triple H, of course, Triple H being in charge with the retirement run, with Cena not being a Triple H creation, you're going to have a lot more chances and risks involved because he's not a Triple H guy. Like Triple H isn't as protective over Cena as Vince was. So now you have a lot more of these circumstances where you are allowed to have risks with it. And I feel like John Cena tapping out first time in 20 years is a big way to maximize Gunther, because he's been like, even in the beginning of the match, you tapped out chance to Gunther, referencing the J tap out at WrestleMania. But now you kind of flip that on his head because dude just tapped out Cena, so he tapped out Cena. So if people chant you tapped out, then he's like, well, I just tapped out your guy. So what do you feel about that? And that's going to get him even more heat as a result. And I really feel like this is a big opportunity for WWE to create not only like Gunther as a mega heel, but create the next star that is going to oppose him, whether it's say Oba, Javon, whatever you want. You're going to get to build somebody else off of this because of what Gunther did tonight. And it's short-term pain for a lot of people, but I'm sure the long-term gain is going to be that much better if WWE steers the course with this.
And I hope it's not for a long time until Gunther's guy is put over. I think we just put a lot of equity into him. Honestly, I wouldn't rule out Cody Rhodes versus Gunther at WrestleMania Night 1. I know you got the Roman and Cody teases in the reports as well. Rossi, coming out of this, there's a tagline. And that tagline is sports entertainment is dead and pro wrestling is alive. Gunther is your face of sports. Gunther destroyed the face of sports entertainment. And now Gunther is the face of pro wrestling. Now, that's not the exact tagline, but do you agree with that sentiment? And do you think that's something that can be built off of? And they can get like this WWE marketing plan, get behind sports entertainment is dead, pro wrestling is alive, Gunther.
Yeah, I mean, Gunther's versatility that he's shown this year alone is crazy. So I like having a tagline like that because Gunther's somebody that can kind of be in his own meta universe, right? He doesn't have to be tied into a lot of storylines. He can just be the guy that's on the show right now to have the best match of the night, right? And that's how he's fit during this entire tournament. That's how he's fit pretty much his entire roster. But they can really kind of latch onto that with maybe the titles not being necessary for him moving forward.
Yeah, I think he's firmly falling into that Andre and Taker role, or in the Brock role, the attraction. Before he was the champion. Now I think he's going to become a guy that you want to try to slay. He can become an attraction, be bigger than the belt in some aspect, be a mountain to climb, but you got to build that mountain, and you got to continuously build that mountain. I think his style plays into that as well. Of course, has a rich history in the WWE with titles. If it's from the UK title, the IC, the World Heavyweight, right? I think he become bigger than the title while holding the title in a way too. I'm really looking forward to the future of Gunther. Richie, anything else on Gunther before we kind of talk about the backlash to the night?
Yeah, I really do think that this is a big opportunity for a big storyline, because John Cena, even though his retirement tour in a lot of ways helped WWE in their portrayal, it was also kind of a hindrance because you're putting a guy who's not going to be there all the time in the main spot, and whether he should be or shouldn't be is inconsequential. And with Gunther winning here, you have the opportunity to be flexible with it, because the two guys that have beat Gunther that Gunther didn't get his win back are the two champions right now, Cody and Punk. So you have different stories to tell with Gunther, not only being in the championship picture, but what happens when Gunther's champion now? Who else is going to step up to him? And then you're going to have all these people that were rumored to retire, like AJ, we know, retiring next year, Brock potentially retiring, Chris Jericho potentially coming back and retiring next year in storyline. You have a lot of different things where it's like each match is going to be a title versus career match. Potentially.
Should be his thing for sure. I love it.
Yeah, and then it's just like you build up to a certain point where, let's say it's like a Randy Orton or Kevin Owens, and like you're not sure if this person's going to retire or they're actually going to win the title. So that's the chase that becomes apparent for WWE. That's the next dragon that everyone chases. It's who can defeat Gunther, the seemingly unstoppable guy who is retiring these people left and right. And I think that's a creative way to go to, because now it's a perfect storm with all these legends retiring and Gunther purifying WWE of the sports entertainers and making it strictly professional wrestling.
I love it. I do love that presentation. All right. I think the crowd got a little too cute with the fuck you Triple H's. with the rejection, calling it Triple H's thing. I looked at the result as this. Like, I love the Providence Friars. I love the Boston Celtics. And I love the New England Patriots. Wasn't a great weekend for 2 out of the 3. I watched a double overtime game in my hotel room before going over across the block to the Capitol Arena Center, whatever you want to call it. And the Friars lost in double overtime. Was it a great game? Yes. But did I give a fuck that it was a great game? No, it was a terrible game because they lost. And I was they should have won. Loose ball, kick out 3, like so stupid, like so small mistakes, can't execute. Now, was the Cena match and Gunther match bad by any means? No, it was a great match. I was nervous that the match was going to be bad, but people rejecting the finish, I don't think is a bad thing in the long run. If the match sucked, it would play into John Cena run sucking. But John Cena has had 3 to 4 fantastic matches, and this was one of them. So with the whole fuck you Triple H, that was just the rejection of the Friars losing, the Celtics losing. Don't have to worry about UConn losing. They never lose, Richie. Right? So, Richie, do you think that the emotion of John Cena was the backlash and people wanting to see him win? And we talked about this in the preview where the plan is the plan. Like the plan was to push on to the future, get Gunther to that next level, put that Cena equity into Gunther, and Gunther will distribute that equity elsewhere? Or do you think that it should be about the moment? Because the WWE has been planning a lot of moments around stories and caring more about the moments than the stories in the past. Here, they cared about the stories in the future. They cared about pro wrestling, not the sports entertainment moment. Do you think it was the right call now in retrospect?
I do think the result was the right call, just because you are building upon the next big bad, and then that's going to build your next big baby face.
Yep.
So that's what you need to do to preserve the future. If Cena won here, it would be a good moment, but then people would be like, oh, wow, that's it. Why did Gunther just win an entire tournament just to lose the Cena? How is he going to build off that? And I'm sure people are like, oh, he could have pinned him. Cena should have passed out, the whole never give up thing. But if Cena passed out, that would just put the attention back on, it should put the attention back on Cena, but it's putting the attention on that Gunther couldn't make Cena do what he said he would do. You know what I mean? Gunther made a promise. He kept it. That's the story of it. If Cena were to pass out, then the attention is on the resiliency of John Cena, and he's essentially being forced to retire. With this, Cena's accepting his retirement, which I think is more bittersweet. And as a result, you see the reaction of the other stars around him. Like we saw Cody at the end. He's the last one at the ring staring at the shoes. That's a story right there. You have Punk, who has that tight relationship with Cena. Story right there for Gunther. You have AJ, close confidant of John Cena and close rival. Story right there. You have all these different stories because Gunther made Cena tap out. Like if Gunther would just win, like whether it's pinfall or make Cena pass out, then it wouldn't have been as effective. Here, tapping out because now Gunther is saying, I'm going to make you do this, and then you see the greatest of all time that WWE's labeling do it, then you're like, oh, this is for real. This is the Thanos. This is the Darth Vader. This is the guy that's going to wreak havoc on WWE. And it's all going to be quality performances. And I think that people booing Triple H is more of how poorly planned and also poorly paced the entire retirement tour was, and the lack of direction that you would see in the retirement tour towards a lot of people. So do I think people are just kind of lashing out due to the result? Yeah. Do I think it's just kind of all the build up that Triple H has had criticism throughout the year? Also, yeah. Do I think it's really necessary? No, because a lot of those people are going to be watching Raw tomorrow. So I'm not really kind of stressing on the boos. If people stop going to the shows or stop talking about the shows, that's when you have something to worry about.
Rossi, I part of me thinks that Triple H is glad that Cena's out of the picture, so he can get back to 2023, an open slate. He has some guys that are hot like Gunther. He got guys on the rise. He's got veteran champions. He's got established stars to play off of. and this whole energy of John Cena is over, and let's kind of cash into it. John Cena, I think he obviously respects John. He main evented WrestleMania with him. And at that point, when John was on the rise as a main eventer, Triple H was kind of on the back nine as a main eventer. So he wasn't never really opposed to John Cena from a main event standpoint. So I think that, there's no professional jealousy. I think there is professional jealousy, let's put it that way. But I think there's professional acceptance that Triple H was never really on that level or could do what John did from a star standpoint. But I think Triple H, the booker, is very content with John's story being over. And I think that the John Cena retirement tour was more of a hindrance in his eyes than a success. Do you agree with my sentiment, or do you think that, Triple H was like, this was more of a crutch for Triple H to lean on, and then he just is not over being a booker, but is just like enough with the backlash or annoyed or have other aspirations in life? Where do you think Triple H is right now?
So I think there's something to that. I think there's some relief to Triple H because 2025, I think if, when you guys do the countdown on Tuesday and when we start like doing year-end stuff over the next couple weeks, we're going to look back at 2025 in WWE, a underwhelming year, right? Well, actually not kind of, definitely an underwhelming year. And I don't really blame that on Cena, but Cena was kind of the crux of everything that they did. So they kind of had to put other things to the, and it also, there was record gates, there was record merch sales. Last night was the highest grossing arena show in the history of WWE, right? So a company of their standard, TKO and below, that's really what's most important, right? So they've kind of had like an artificial success rate because the shows haven't been really that good, but they're still raking in money because people wanted to go see John Cena one last time. Yeah. So I think that he's going to get back to making new stars, get back to like canvas as he starts putting WrestleMania together.
I think it's a vulnerable time for him in a way where they have to hit and get the buzz, because him as a booker is a little vulnerable. Now, I don't think he's vulnerable as where he would get replaced, but I think his popularity is vulnerable. And what, you're only as good as your last angle, and this John Cena angle has been kind of a miss. And not to jump into the weeds too much on 2025, but he's been snake bit with injuries, and I think his biggest crutch is, or his biggest like criticism right now, is trying to find a way to book around Unreal in a way and not make stories about Unreal, but to have Unreal fall into television stories. I think that the latter part is the cadence, is to build a TV show and have Unreal fit in, opposed to being like, Jey Uso, we're going with you. And then Jey Uso isn't as big as the spot he gets, right? Or John Cena and The Rock, we're going to create this fucking awesome moment for Unreal in the internet, but we have no substance afterwards. So they need to start building stories for the moments, not the moments with half-assed stories. But, Belair hurt all year, snake bit a lot of stuff on the women's side. Seth Rollins, the fake injury angle at SummerSlam worked, but then he gets injured a month and a half later, and he's snake bit there. A handful of other injuries that I'm sure we're going to go about as well. So they've had a bunch of bad luck. They're due for some good karma from a standpoint of good luck and people not getting hurt and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to 2026, not because of good luck, but I think that they have the players to get hot again creatively. And I hope Triple H is recharged as well. And Richie, where are you kind of with Triple H, the booking, and do you think that the rejection is real? We the circles we're around, we feel it and see it. The internet, the IWC, we see it as well. But to Rossi's point, do they ever really go away?
Yeah, with Triple H as a booker, it's definitely a mixed bag this year. I will say, like, I feel like a lot of because like the storylines, like majority of them do make sense. It's just a lot of them, it's a lot of padding. because you have to try to like kill time before the next angle or you're ready to do the next angle. And I feel like that's the biggest crutch that you have, where it's like you're waiting on all these people, whether it's injuries, whether it's movie roles, whether it's TV series that they're filming. They're working around all these people's schedules. And then it becomes a little bit much, where it comes to a point where these weekly TV shows are getting kind of tedious. And then why do I need to watch the TV shows when the big angles are going to happen on the PLEs? And it becomes a point where you want to see new names like in that main event scene. Like the main event scene in WWE in general is very top heavy.
Yeah.
But then it's like you see people who want to see guys like LA Knight get a little bit victories here and there, even though his story has been like, you know, he's been the center focus of his own story, so to speak. And even though he's on the losing end, he is still getting TV time in the main event segment. But you still want to see guys like that have victories along the way. So it feels like the journey is kind of worth it, that you get these small victories and then you just go through the ebbs and flows. And I feel like like this year was a year where it's like you had a lot more like down periods for certain stars that you want to root for than up periods, because you want to feel rewarded for watching the TV show. You don't want to be, you know, consistently in heel heat, so to speak, for the grand majority of it. And I feel like that's the difference between Triple H and Vince as a booker, where it's like you're still gonna, like with Vince as a booker, it's more chaotic. And it's like, all right, let's go with this guy just because it was an impulse decision, but because it wasn't well built up, then it feels like underwhelming. And now you have things where it's like long planned out. It's like, oh, Cody's going to be WWE champion. He's going to film Street Fighter, but we're not going to see him for a while. So we're going to build up Drew, but then Cody's defeating Drew multiple times. Where's Drew going from here? So it just becomes a little bit kind of like questionable, but it's all about the ride and see how entertained you are throughout the entire journey of these guys' stories.
Yeah. Now let's talk conclusion. We talked about the match. We talked about the build-up. We talked about Triple H, so on and so forth. Obviously, John has the right to reject it, and I hope that it comes out if it was pitched to him or if it was his idea about the tap out, because I think that was the plan all along. And when we were on our prediction shows, I think one of you guys picked tap out, one of you guys picked pass out, and then I was like, I think Triple H, I could sense that the rejection was coming, right? And in my opinion, it didn't harpen the match and the result whatsoever. I thought it was fantastic. I'm going to have to watch it live to give it a star rating, but it's above 4, like just for the moment and the execution alone, in my opinion, right? It's above 4. So I think that it was great. It was executed well, and it was a monster success. But do you think that there was any other way that they could have done it to make the opposing crowd more happy? It was always about Gunther. It was always about Cena being content, because honestly, never give up, and Cena giving up is warranted, in my opinion. I think it's apropos. I think it's him going out on his own, him accepting his retirement. People like Angle, people like Bruno, even Austin, guys like that. Hogan's final match was in SummerSlam. He didn't know it was his final match. These guys, historically, that we talked about being at that level, were not able to have a successful final match in their eyes. And John warrants that and got that, and he got a whole year-long build of his year building into it as well. So I'm just content because John seemed content as it as well, and it builds up for the future. He gave back, and Gunther is going to be a megastar. Gunther's going to have a Roman Reigns level WrestleMania 33 moment tomorrow night, and they're not going to fumble it like Roman coming out of it. Roman in the moment was great, but they didn't do anything with it. Gunther's going to fucking relish in that tomorrow, and he's going to even be bigger and bigger coming out of it. We talked about Gunther breaking through that glass ceiling. He might have already broke through it off this performance last night. But the backlash with Triple H, Richie, is there any other way to do it? Like, do you accept it? Is it great? Awesome? Where are you with it?
It's short-term pain for long-term gain if they do it correctly, where it's like, yeah, you are going to get heat for this decision. And with Triple H coming out, yeah, he's going to get majority of the backlash because he writes the shows and he is a part of the creative team and leads the creative team. So obviously it's going to overshadow John Cena's conclusion. So, like, hindsight being 2020, should have Triple H go out there? Probably not. But at the same time, it's like you have like the history with all these guys who are and girls who are just like surrounding the ring interacting with John Cena. And again, it's one of those things where the heat is going to something, hopefully, that's going to build upon not only Gunther, but the people that Gunther is going to be facing. And I don't see it as a failure yet, just because like you got to see where the story goes. Now you have Gunther have this achievement that hasn't been done in 20 plus years. How are you going to book him? How are you going to build him? And you just kind of go on from there. And I feel like a lot of people, it's like, oh, it's championship or burst, or or championship or bust. For him, it's just like you got to make this story meaningful. And I feel like with Gunther, he is one of Triple H's like handpicked guys when it comes to the antagonist side. So you really have to lean into that fact now, because he's going to get all the heat to it. Like we just saw like outside the couple of videos where he had to get extra security detail to his bus because
Awesome.
people are legitimately angry with him. And that's how you create more of a star and a legend in him. So yeah, it's like, I don't see like it being harmful to WWE. It's all about the follow-up. And right now they have a great start with this story. It's all about how they manage and conclude that story.
All right, Rossi, I got two things for you. I don't even know if I like one of them or either of them. First being Triple H. Is there any way that Triple H could be linked to Gunther on a on-screen standpoint? Because they can kind of glom onto it. Like I'm saying, like kind of like Vince in a way. And then that's the way to kind of eventually get Gunther to break through as a baby face. He outgrows Triple H, so on and so forth. Because I don't think Gunther needs the heat, but is there any way they can double the heat with throwing Triple H with them? Or does Triple H not want to be perceived at that either?
I don't think it would work for the simple reason that I don't think Triple H would be able to help himself once he was in that role, and then we'd have like full-blown heel GM again. And that's just my vibes with Triple H. Like, I think less is more with him. And we're kind of at the point that the way that he kicks off so many like big shows is kind of already too much. I'm rebelling towards that because I think Triple H. Nobody loves Triple H more than Triple H, and
what can't be on screen that much, exactly.
Right? And when he's on screen and he's helping Gunther, it just becomes let's get myself over too,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the second being, they're not really sucking their own dicks anymore. Like they put the ribs back in to their, like, no more Marilyn Manson. They're not being like Record Gates, Paul Levesque era. They're not really doing that anymore. Cause I thought that started being the start of the kickback. Be like, all right, like for me instantly, like, all right, like, so you're bragging that you had the fans pay as much as they could pay, and then you got booed and rejected? Is it that, or are they over themselves trying to justify the sale and the purchase of buying WWE and so on and so forth? Do you think that it's A, they're to the point where it's like, all right, well, I don't want to rub it in their face, or B, they don't need to justify it anymore?
Like, either way you shake it out, like, you kind of have to tell the crowd that they're stupid, right? Because they're paying through the ass for these shows. They're probably not always we know they're not always leaving these shows happy. Like, you think that the majority of the 45,000 people that left Survivor Series are happy with how the show ended? No. Right. But then this one, I feel like there are people that left last night angry are the people that the glass is always half empty. Right. Yeah. And in wrestling, we're always going to have that. AEW has that. WCW had that. ECW had that. It's just what wrestling is, and it's kind of that contrarian way. And on top of the fact that the internet crowd thinks that they are worth a lot more than they are, we get that turned up to 1,000. I know of kids that learned who John Cena was this year that were hysterically, right? I know of, like, do you see that video of that kid that was yelling at Gunther? Like, he was legitimately off in the front row, and Gunther was just standing there like, I'm civilized, you're not. So it is kind of a turning point that they can really, ramp up Gunther, kind of start moving things in the right direction again. I just hope that, while we have that monster heel in Gunther, What scares me the most right now is the fact that it's December 14th when we record this, right? Gunther's going to be on the December 15th Raw in this major heel dynamic. And then what are we going to do for the next 3 weeks? Like, does he kind of get cooled off between now and that first Raw on Netflix? Especially when we are the first of the year, especially when we already know that that's the Braun Breaker spot. That's where I'm a little nervous, but it's also, like I was saying earlier, a clean canvas for them to figure out how to do this. Live Raw, taped Raw over the next couple of weeks. It is kind of a scary spot.
Yeah, they're taping it weird too, where they're taping SmackDown before Raw, but then they're going to do Raw live, and then they're going to tape the end of SmackDown after Raw. It's a very, very weird spot. They're doing that twice in a row. All right, guys, we're at the end. My throat is running out of steam here. We got throat surgery coming up Friday. So we got one more live, Richie, on Tuesday to kind of get through with this fucking throat issue. But any closing thoughts here on Gunther, John Cena, Saturday night's main event? Give me an old school score out of 10. What do you got for us here?
For the entire event, or Gunther versus John specifically?
All of it, both.
So for the event, I really enjoyed it. I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed watching it. Thought it was a big step up from Survivor Series. I think expectations were also lower than Survivor Series, which also helped. For Gunther versus John, I'd probably give it like out of 5 stars, probably like solid like 3.75 or 4 stars. I really thought it was a good match. I think for a match of that quality for John Cena at this stage of his career, that's probably the best you're going to get without all the gaga, bells and whistles, no disqualification or interferences that were hampering his run just because he couldn't really do that much. And I really enjoyed the finish. I really enjoyed the tap out. I know a lot of people didn't, but at the same time, it's just like this is potentially going to build the next big heel within WWE, and this new story arc of professional wrestling versus sports entertainment, where professional wrestling is kind of being villainized, is actually an interesting direction to see what happens with the story going forward with Gunther. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I love that aspect of the sports entertainment dying and the pro wrestling beginning. Rossi, I'm going to be higher than Richie. I'm probably going to be 8. And I think I'm going to be 4, 4.25, maybe even higher. I have to rewatch it. I have that live aspect, so I'm going to have that. That's going to be a little fonder in my mindset. But I thought this was excellent. I think it's in the top tier of Cena matches this year. What's over the score it out of 10 in the match? What do you give it?
So I say the match I had about 4.25, just first thought. And then the show, I'm kind of with Richie, like 7.5. But I think that this show is going to, I want to score it again in a year, right? Because of how the follow-up is for not just Gunther, but Oba, for Soul, for, what happens with AJ even, and like Leon Slater and and Javon Evans. I want to see if this was a true launching point for any of those NXT guys, and also what it's going to mean for Gunther in a year. So I think this is a show that we could really look fondly on. Hit for 2 out of those 4 groups. And we could be in a year as an 8.59 if it hits the way that it should for someone like Gunther.
Yeah, and I think this will look back fondly if this does become a legacy thing in January or December here each year, like we kind of pushed all along. But overall, guys, I'm toast. The throat is gone, and I'm gonna go 8. I'm gonna go 8.5, and I gotta rewatch it on TV to rate it. So, great night for me. I don't regret going. Money well spent, even though I did get that nice discount deal. So, if you play, you can play into the WWE's dynamic pricing if you are patient and you strike when the timing is right. And that I did on this evening. So, Richie, we'll see you Tuesday night. Rossi, we'll see you on Shooting Sharp Tuesday. And guys, we'll see you sooner than later. Thank you, guys. Bye.